kunja-vihari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Kadibhajacharya Astatara Sri Maharaj's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Coming with the founder charges Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Kadibhajacharya Astatara Sri Maharaj's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Santa Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gauda Premanandi. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Kṛṣṇa Padastāvale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharnani Visesa Snyavadi Prastata Dishatarini. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaimadirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavadinaishtaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 27, entitled Understanding Material Nature, text number 13. Evam trivṛd-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛd-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ sva-ābhāsaiḥ lakṣito nena svābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛd-ahaṅkāro what is that? Is that right? Bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-bhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛd-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ sva-ābhāsair 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 lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk. Ladies. Satya-dṛk. Evam, thus, trivṛt, the threefold, ahaṅkāraḥ, false ego, bhūta-indriya-manomayaiḥ, consisting of body, senses, and mind, svābhāsair, by its own reflections, lakṣitaḥ, is revealed, anena, by this, sad-ābhāsena, by a reflection of Brahman, satya-dṛk, the self-realized soul. Purport. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, mind, and senses. Body, senses, and mind. Please repeat. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses, and mind. Purport. The conditioned soul thinks, I am this body. But a liberated soul thinks, I am not this body. I am spirit soul. This I am is called ego, or identification of the self. I am this body, or everything in relationship to the body is mine. It is so-called false ego. But when one is self-realized and thinks that he is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, that identification is real ego. One conception is in the darkness of the threefold qualities of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and the other is in the pure state of goodness, called śuddha-sattva or vāsudeva. When we say that we give up our ego, this means that we give up our false ego. But real ego is always present. When one is reflected through the material contamination of the body and mind in false identification, he is in the conditional state. But when he is reflected in the pure stage, he is called liberated. The identification of oneself with one's material possessions in the conditional stage must be purified, and one must identify himself in relationship with the Supreme Lord. In the conditioned state, one accepts everything as an object of sense gratification, and in the liberated state, one accepts everything for the service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness, devotional service, is the actual liberated stage of a living entity. Otherwise, both accepting and rejecting on the material platform is in voidness or impersonalism. Are imperfect conditions for the pure soul. By the understanding of the pure soul called satya-dṛk, one can see everything as a reflection of the super-personality of Godhead. A concrete example can be given in this connection. A conditioned soul sees a very beautiful rose, and he thinks that the nice aromatic flower should be used for his own sense gratification. This is one kind of vision. A liberated soul, however, sees the same flower as a reflection of the Supreme Lord. He thinks, this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized in His service. These are two kinds of vision. The conditioned soul sees the flower for his own enjoyment, and the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in the service of the Lord. In the same way, one can see the reflection of the Supreme Lord in one's own senses, mind, and body, in everything. With that correct vision, one can engage everything in the service of the Lord. It is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one who has engaged everything, his vital energy, his wealth, his intelligence, and his words, in the service of the Lord, or who desires to engage all these in the service of the Lord, no matter how he is situated, is to be considered a liberated soul or satya-dṛk. Such a man has understood things as they are. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Dena Tasmai Sigurve Namah. Ukam Gurudeva-chalam Pangam Langayate Girimargiptamani Sigiram Dinatana Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So here Srila Prabhupada is very nicely describing the difference between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. Because sometimes the question is there, what's the difference between, a common person may ask, what is the difference between what I'm doing and what your liberated soul, your so-called liberated soul is doing? They question like that. What is the difference between material life and spiritual life? Well, Srila Prabhupada very clearly describes here that the difference between material life and spiritual life is that in material life, one is simply considering oneself. That one sees everything in relation to himself. Atmavam manyate jagat. Right? Everyone sees, the conditioned soul sees everything in relation to himself. Oh, I'm conditioned, so everything else must be conditional. I have imperfect senses, so everyone else has imperfect senses. Oh, I have all kinds of anxieties, everybody else is in anxiety, there's no difference. Or at least those who are little intelligence can understand that I'm going to die and everyone else is going to die. But the proper vision is that, as Prabhupada explains here very nicely, iha yasya herda se karmana manasa gira. He ends the purport by commenting on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in which it states that one who engages the karmana, the activities, your body, manasa, the mind, and your words, gira, in spiritual activity, or at least has a desire to be engaged like that, because we may have some limitations. I can't engage fully my body for some reason. Or sometimes I can't always speak, right? Someone may be deaf or dumb. What is their recourse? You mean they can't take up Krishna consciousness, they can't hear, or they can't speak, or they can't move for whatever reason? No. You may have the desire to do that. And because that desire is genuine, because it's pure, that person is considered liberated. So that is the difference between material life and spiritual life, between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is thinking, Ishvaroham aham bhogi, right? Siddhuhan bhalavan sukhi, that I'm the controller. You know, I can do as I like. That bhalavan sukhi, that I'm the enjoyer. Siddhoham bhalavan sukhi, that I'm the strongest. I'm the wealthiest. Sometimes the foolish persons think like this. Actually, their idea is that that they're the Lord of everything, they're the enjoyer, and they're perfect and powerful, and they're the happiest, even though they may be totally miserable. It's madness. And so their idea is that that they are the richest, that they're surrounded by aristocratic relatives, worshippers, and they'll give a little bit of charity once in a while. They have a whole lot of wealth, so they'll give a little bit of charity and make sure that my plaque is there, that so-and-so gave for so-and-so project. And in this way, they'll rejoice. But this is madness, obviously. The conditioned soul again thinks that I am this body, and everything in relationship to it is mine. But as Prabhupada points here, everything in relationship to the body is mine. And this is called false ego. But when one is actually self-realized, he thinks that he is an eternal servitor. Of course, we're all serving to some degree, as Prabhupada has mentioned countless times. We're all serving. Someone may be serving God, someone may be serving dog. Someone may be serving his body or mind or his senses, but everyone is serving to some degree, in some way, even the most powerful. Prabhupada I was listening to a lecture just the other day, and Prabhupada was saying, so-and-so president, he may be very president, but a big president or such a big personality, but he's also serving. He has to serve in some way. Whether it's his senses, his mind, or some other being's senses and mind. But the service is there. Unfortunately, the materialistic mind is that the service should be done for myself, or that it's that under the enchantment, as the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, under the enchantment of the illusory energy, one thinks that he's the controller. Maya amuga jivera nahi swata Kṛṣṇa gyan. That the illusory energy is so powerful that the living entity thinks that he is the controller, that everything is meant for his enjoyment. But this is not the reality. Even though, again, one may become very proud in this material world and proud of his accomplishments, all of these things will, in due course, be taken away. So identification with one's own material possessions in the conditioned stage must be purified, as Prabhupada points out here. Unfortunately, he can't do it by himself. That is the reality. He needs because he's enchanted by the material energy, he can't do it on his own. He has to rely upon Kṛṣṇa. And by the mercy of Kṛṣṇa, the Lord is so kind, he's given us the Vedic literatures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and the other supplementary literatures. And by their help, the living being can get out of that suffering condition. But he has to be purified, because it's not the natural state of the living being. Otherwise, both accepting and rejecting on the material platform, or in voidness or materialism, are imperfect impediments for the pure soul. In other words, there's dualities. As long as one is in that conditioned state, there's dualities. Oh, I can accept this. This is very good for my gratification, or this is not so good. And Kṛṣṇa explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, Traigunya Vishya Veda Nischaygunya Bhavarjuna. He tells Arjuna that you need to become freed of these modes, come to the transcendental platform. And in that way, you'll become freed from the anxiety for safety and gain. Right? We're very much in anxiety these days for our own safety. Therefore, we surround ourselves with so many safeguards. We think they're safe, but it's obvious. Even the most powerful persons, they may walk out on the street and someone shoots them in the back, or they're run over by a vehicle or something else. Material nature may open up the earth and swallow up so many living beings. All of this phantasmagoria that we've created. So it's the solution is to come to one's original state, Nitya Krishna Das. Krishna is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the real ultimate and original state of the living being is to be engaged in Krishna service. Otherwise, one is acting as, again, the Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that in the conditioned state, one is haunted just like as a ghost, right? Pisachi paile, that just like a ghost, you see sometimes persons they walk around in a ghostly manner. They're being haunted by something. Some energy is imposing its will on them, and they don't realize who they are. And in our minds, we may consider, oh, well, they're haunted, but such and such person who's acting as a businessman or acting as a husband or wife or this or that, they're fine. No, actually, because we're identifying with this body, we're seeing everything in relation to me, that is incorrect. That is, again, being haunted. Just as a haunted person thinks that he may be something that he's actually not. There's this one famous actor, I won't mention his name, but he acted as a Superman for many years. Right? He was Superman in the movies. Well, what did he do? He thought he was Superman and he jumped out of a window and he killed himself. He couldn't fly. So that is, it's madness. That's not the reality. One has to get out of that condition and become purified. By the understanding of the pure soul called satya-dṛk, one can see everything in relation as a reflection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even our own body, mind, and senses. One can see the Lord through them as well. And that we can understand from Rupa Goswami's instructions. You can recognize and realize the personality of Godhead even through the body, mind, and senses. But that has to happen. A concrete example is given in this connection. Prabhupada points out a beautiful rose. One may think that this nice aromatic flower should be used for his own sense gratification. This is one kind of vision. So there are two different visions. You can see everything according to your vision, atmana manyante jagat, right? You can see everything in relation to you. And of course, that is the incorrect vision, because the living being is conditioned by the material nature. Or you can see it through the eyes of knowledge, through the instructions of the devotees of the Lord, through the Lord within the heart. So this idea that everything we see around us is meant for my enjoyment, well, I will calculate in such a way that it all fulfills that desire, that illusion, that this family, that this car, that this rose, as Prabhupada points out here, these are all meant for my own gratification. That is one kind of vision. But a liberated soul sees that same flower as a reflection of the personality of Godhead. He thinks this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Right? Just as in Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the liberated soul sees with equal vision all living beings, all things. Meaning that he sees them in relation to the personality of Godhead. That he's actually the enjoyer. The conditioned soul sees the flower for his own enjoyment. And the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in the service of the Lord. In this way, one can see the reflection of the Supreme Lord in one's own senses, mind and body, in everything. So it's not a difficult matter. It's not a very complicated process. The execution, that depends on the individual, certainly, on how conditioned we are, how attached we are. But the principle is there. The process is very simple. Just to see everything in relation to the personality of Godhead. And that means, of course, purification. That one has to be engaged in the process practically so that these senses can become purified and we can see everything in relation to the personality of Godhead. And not as something for my enjoyment. The Kripanas, as Prahlad, Kripana Bahu Dukkha Bhaja, Prahlad describes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Maitanadi Griyamidam Sukham Itucham. The Kripanas, or the miserly persons, the foolish persons, they're thinking how everything is meant for my enjoyment. And therefore they go about their lives running here and there. They shoot across the freeways in such a chaotic way. I was just driving down from San Francisco, and I thought I would go in the early morning when it's still dark, but I forgot that that's when all the trucks travel. You don't see them so much during the day. We're not aware of it. It's mostly passengers. But in the evening, in the early morning, when it's dark, there are just trucks after truck, just rushing along the road, flying down the road like anything. And understandably, accidents happen. So as I was driving on one side, on the other side, there was an accident with one of these semis, and the backup must have been at least 5 miles. At least 5 miles. So we're running here and there thinking that we'll hurry up and achieve something in this world, but then all of a sudden something happens. And that whole dream is, it bursts, just like a bubble. And you think that, and we think that, oh, now what? What am I going to do with life? What am I going to do to be happy? But all of these things, these are only based on the materialistic demeanor. It has nothing to do with who we actually are, and that is servants of Kṛṣṇa. The foolish people, the Kripana Bahu Dukkha Bhaja, they may make all kinds of plans, their miserly plans, their foolish plans, but for the devotee, we understand that let me some or other engage in the devotional service of the Lord and really truly see things as they are. And be happy. Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.